G'day team, and thanks for joining us on another episode of Veterans. I hope you've been tuning in to Capital Radio with Stephen Centipento and enjoying that as well. Well team, this week on episode 2, we're going to have a chat about understanding veterans. Why are we doing that? Well, one of the things that we're hoping to achieve with this series is getting it out there so that the civilian population and friends, family and all the rest of it maybe have a little bit better understanding about how veterans think and understanding the veterans. At the end of this episode, we're hoping that you move away and go away from this going, yeah, okay, I get that. I understand why they think a certain way and they do things a certain way. So first of all, let's have a look at how a veteran is made. And that's actually the best way of putting it. You would have heard, your boot camp, you would have seen movies like Full Metal Jacket, The Boys in Company C, all of these types of movies that that show you boot camp with people getting yelled at and all the rest of stuff. Is it like that? Sort of. And when I say sort of, it's designed to do a certain thing. And this is something that you need to keep in mind. So I often, when I'm talking about my time in the military, I have a joke. Literally the first 4 weeks, all they do is yell at you. Right, and tell you to make your bed, when and how to do it, and all of those sorts of things. The second 4 weeks, all they do is yell at you and make you run up big hills. The third 4 weeks, they actually tend to lay off a little bit of the yelling, but they still make you run up big hills and do a lot of drill. So by the time you leave recruit training, you're conditioned a certain way, and you're also conditioned to think a certain way. What the military does is it instills self-discipline. Now, that's one of the biggest keys to how military personnel work. And you've got to understand that training that soldiers, naval personnel and airmen do is task orientated, right? It is specific. People say, and I've often, likened maybe a little bit of brainwashing, and it literally is. They teach you how to think, they teach you, what to think, how to think, and when to think it. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, that's horrible, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is, given the role and the tasking and obviously the job that you do in the Defence Forces, you have to be on your game. And again, I come back to that terminology, task specific, and we'll use it a fair bit during this episode because a lot of the stuff that you do in the military is exactly that. So our first point, about joining the military, that boot camp or recruit training, from there you move to your employment training, and depending what that's in, I'll give an example. If you're infantry, you go to the infantry school. If you're engineer, you go to the engineer school. If you're a signal, and so on. All right, so again, these factors come into play. Again, it reinforces what you did at recruit school, and it teaches you your job. Right, and that depends if that's an arms role or a combat role, or might be a storeman's role, or it may be a clerk's role, or something of that nature. And again, during that whole time, all right, you're expected to act, dress, and speak a certain way. You address your seniors by a certain their rank and title and things like that. So again, there's a great deal of discipline and self-discipline around being a defence personnel, or a soldier, airman, or Air Force personnel, Navy, I should say. So the next bit, how do the defence personnel think? Again, these service personnel are designed to think a certain way. They are designed to take into consideration things that matter that are in relation to their task. This could be, and literally in real-time situation, the difference between life and death. Anything that's superfluous and not what they just disregard. It is useless information to them and doesn't need to be used. All right. So again, military personnel are designed to and trained to think and be task orientated, and when they think, that is actually how they think. They take into consideration factors that are designed to achieve an outcome, and that is obviously the outcome of the Defence Force at the time. Whether it be combat related, aid to the civil community related. I'll give an example, COVID-19 and how the Defence Force are working there. They would be given specific tasks and roles to perform within that. Okay, so that's how they'll think. Okay, I need to do this task, this, and this. And it's very structured and it's very regimented. And again, there's reasons for that because as a soldier or a airman or in the Navy, it could mean life or death in some situations. Now we'll have a talk about actually how veterans act. Veterans are funny creatures. I've often heard people refer to a veteran as, oh, geez, they're arrogant. I've even had my own wife say, you've been one of the biggest arrogant pigs that I've ever met. And I just shake my head and go, oh, geez, that's harsh. However, the reality is, okay, military personnel, right, don't suffer superfluous things lightly. They don't. There's no flowers around it. They're taught to be direct. They're taught to be precise. They're taught to be organised. They're taught to be disciplined. So when you see or meet a civvy or a civvy talks or the way they act, you usually find that they could seem arrogant, because to them, as a civilian, you're literally an undisciplined slob. Now, whether or not that's true or not is irrelevant. That's how they see you. Because, again, you aren't smartly dressed, or the way you conduct yourself, it might be just that you're a civilian. And that's not saying that civilian people are not smartly dressed, nor are they driven or anything like that. You are dealing with someone that does this day in, day out. The military and the military lifestyle is actually their lifestyle. So a little bit different if you work at Coles and you're a manager there, you get home, you might think about work, but literally Coles stays at Coles and you go home. In the military, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The reality, especially in some arenas, you can be on call for 24 hours. You might be on 8 hours notice to move. You mightn't be allowed to go anywhere. Once again, the job that the defence personnel perform dictates a little bit, actually I should say a lot, how they act and the type of people they are. They are driven people, they are motivated. Once again, they look at Civvy Street and all it is this garbled mess and people do what they like, and it is an extreme trigger for them. All right. Again, you'll see it with veterans when they get out of the Defence Force. One of the hardest things they have to deal with is people being late. It's just like, oh my God. Someone's late and they're not getting yelled at, they're not getting extra duties, they're not getting charged. It's incomprehensible to that newly discharged person that has literally been institutionalised over how many years, and it may only be 4 years that they've been in. They will be institutionalised because they've been taught how to think, how to look at things a specific way. Now that's not good nor bad, that's just the reality of it is. And again, when you're dealing with military personnel or ex-military personnel, veterans, that's, I suppose, something to keep in the back of your mind, is that, and look, don't get me wrong, certainly service personnel respect everyone, and they, that is part of what their role is. They're serving our nation. They give the highest form of public service. However, you may come across young, or not even a young, older generation, or a soldier or airman or a naval personnel that seems or comes across as arrogant. You'll probably find that they're just direct, they're just forward, they aren't there for a haircut. That's one of my favourite sayings. They're literally task-driven and task-orientated. Another one of the Ute thing I hear a lot of the time is, oh, soldiers are really good fighters. That can be said, that's true too. Some soldiers in the Defence Force are taught how to kill people. There is no two ways about it. That's what the Defence Force does. It kills people. All right? It's designed, it's purpose-built to do that. Okay, and some people are trained to do it with their bare hands. There's no denying that. But that's not everyone. All right? Usually you'll find, and this idea of soldiers are good fighters, usually they're just fit and really angry, basically. I have a laugh. My wife says, God, you're the grumpiest. She met all my recruit mates and they were just all grumpy, because you are so fit and you believe in the cause and you do not suffer fools lightly. And once again, it comes back to what generally happens is a soldier will have had enough of an idiot and he'll snot him. And I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing. That's just a lot of the time what happens. Or we'll tell him to nick off. So again, understanding how soldiers think plays a really big part in understanding how they do business and how they interact with people. Again, this idea of being angry. They're not angry, they're just taught and encouraged to use controlled aggression. One of the biggest factors of being a soldier is tapping into controlled aggression, depending, again, what corps you're in. But for instance, arms corps are encouraged and actually praised and given, like encouragement to use controlled aggression and be aggressive, because at times their task in real time requires that aggression and that mentality. Look, does it fit in civic world? Unfortunately not. And this is where a lot of the time we have problems with soldiers, and defence personnel having trouble actually assimilating back in to society because of deployment or because of the way they've been trained. Again, as I said in the first video, it's irrelevant where you've been or what your deployment status. The fact is that a number of soldiers, and I'd give an example, in the 70s, 80s and 90s, it would be negligent or foolish to say any of those SAS troopers that were trained in that era and didn't deploy weren't able to handle themselves. That'd just be a joke. They were trained as highly as the rest of the SAS. Again, the same with the infantry, same with the engineers, same with other arms corps. Again, not saying these are good or bad. What we're trying to do is explore and discuss how veterans think. What I would say to you is, hey, if you're a veteran or you're someone serving, tell us what you think. Comment down below. If you're a parent, a brother, a sister, a family member that has a veteran in your family, tell us what you think. Now, don't get me wrong either. I'm not saying that veterans walk around in grumpy bears all the time. My point is that they are taught to think a certain way, and that will ultimately come out in how they communicate with people and when they get out of the Defence Force. So, again, just one other point I'd probably bring up. I suppose you've got to understand also how business is done in the military. I said earlier, military people don't suffer fools. Usually idiots are sorted out pretty smartly, especially in the arms corps. You can't afford to have morons running around. And that's the reality. If you're an idiot, you'll soon be told and let know that you're an idiot. Again, when you get into Civvy Street, that's not often the case. If you do tell the idiot he's an idiot, it's usually not appropriate how you do it. So just little things like that to bear in mind. Again, you might have a different opinion of this. And like I've said in the first episode, it's not a matter of who's right and wrong here. This is about opening the discussion. But the more we can discuss things like this, about how veterans react to things and how they work, how they're trained, how they think, the better understanding we as a community will have, a better understanding the government will have. And I mentioned earlier, I hope some people in the government are watching this, because they don't understand a lot of the time. And that is a huge problem when it comes to allowing or helping defence personnel in certain matters. So, ladies and gentlemen, viewers, hey, thanks so much for joining us. Look, today, during this episode, we've covered understanding veterans. The reason we have covered these is so you and the general community and anyone that you know, this might help and they might have a better understanding how veterans think. Like I said, they're not all grumpy, and I'm not saying all veterans are grumpy or aggressive or anything like that. It's very much about how they think. So, again, make sure you join us with Stephen Centipento on Capital Radio in Canberra on Friday morning, 7:05, so you can hear our discussions in the morning there for about 5 minutes, and our new video will air similar to this one. So, team, this is Harry from the Shed 2.0. Thanks again for joining us on the second episode of Veterans. Make sure you like, share these with everyone you know that is involved with veterans and around veterans, and make sure you comment and subscribe to the channel. Thanks, team. See you later.